ever. And yeah, that's the thing too. It's doing the recording is literally the easiest part of that whole process.
Mm-hmm.
It's later on having to, cut the audio and listen through all of it where I'm like, good Lord, editing a 2-hour plus podcast sucks.
Yeah, and then it's basically 8 hours, which I can't use my computer. So it's like,
Yeah.
hey.
Yeah, you got to do that one overnight, and then it's like weird because my computer is loud and it's like obnoxiously, I've got like glass on the side and blue lights on the inside of it. So if I need to leave something rendering overnight and my computer's in my bedroom, it's basically ridiculous.
Yeah. That at least my computer's in a different room. But yeah, I got kind of the same computer setup where it has a glass side and purple lights for me. But yeah, it's pretty bright. So anyway, so today we kind of want to do something light and fluffy, and I will say, I was to be completely on the table, I was a little bit hesitant to do this because I feel like we'd kind of done it before, but like we got a lot of requests to do it, so it's like we're just doing what you guys want. So I was kind of told to do this by like a lot of Patreon donators, and then we also had so I put a Twitter thread out there. What should we do? And there was a fair amount of people saying, essentially, what do you want for Dragon Age 4? Just have fun with the damn thing. So I thought that was like, and you kind of wanted to do this too. Let's just have fun with the damn thing.
Yeah, why not? I kind of feel like that's a twofold thing for me, where when we talked through the Schreier articles, I kind of wanted to focus a little bit on what Joplin would have been, and just sort of like as nerds, right? Like as fans of the game, like what would the story have been like? Maybe brainstorm some of the party members, etc. But we had a lot to talk about. We had a lot to unpack as far as Bioware, the studio, and working conditions and all that other stuff. And so we kind of didn't get to just let ourselves daydream as fans, even though you're right, we've done that before. We do it all the time.
Yeah.
I thought that might be kind of light and fun to do separately. And also the angle that I kind of liked from some of the Twitter suggestions was, like what would we suggest or want sort of outside the realm of feasibility, like things that kind of aren't possible. And I think that might be interesting to juxtapose, because I don't think necessarily that my mainstay ideas about, what is tenable, what's possible have changed too much. But I don't know if I've ever just like rattled off rather a wish list of stuff that I know is impossible. Because that'd be kind of fun. So yeah, what the heck, we'll do that.
Yeah, totally. So do you have, I guess just to jump right into it, what's, I guess, what's some unattainable things that you would totally want?
Well, let's start with probably one of the biggest features. It used to be a feature, now it's like a subgenre, now it's like its own total genre, and also kind of a major catchphrase in the gaming industry today, which is open world. And Bioware games didn't used to be open world. There were a lot of games that didn't used to be open world, but
Skyrim
really,
came out and ruined everything.
Skyrim, and I've been playing a lot of Skyrim lately, and I gotta say, that Skyrim world is still up there for me as one of the best open worlds. I really think it's like Witcher 3, Red Dead Redemption 2 level good. It's not as it doesn't feel as big anymore. But there was something about that, something about RPG plus open world that kind of feels like it was always meant to be together. And, we could talk about older games and certain isometric games which weren't truly open world, but that had that same sort of feel. So, yeah, Dragon Age Inquisition kind of tried to do that, but it surely felt like it was out of place. It didn't feel like it had a sure footing on how to mix Bioware RPG aesthetics with the open world. And so it was like, hey, there's this huge area in the hinterlands, but it doesn't really feel well crafted. It kind of just feels like we have a lot of space and the developers didn't know exactly what to do with it. You felt that way, I think, as much as anyone, right?
Oh, yeah. Weirdly enough, I feel like The Witcher kind of took that idea of like trying to do RPG elements with like more classical RPG elements of Bioware, where it's like you have to choose and you have choices that affect the world. I think Witcher kind of perfected that a little bit. Like I think if Dragon Age kind of still has that open worldness of The Witcher, that would be absolutely perfect. Because The Witcher had some, like, really great, you can explore, and suddenly there's, like, you're having, like, really nice cutscenes for a small side quest that really does get nut shit, And that was really cool about it. It gave exploring its own reward, which was just more story and cutscenes. Yeah, in the perfect reality, Dragon Age would have a whole bunch of, I guess, Witcher-esque side quests,
That's exactly what I was going to ask, which is like, how do we quantify what The Witcher 3 did better in that sense? But you just said it. I think it's what we want is story. And so, yeah, you said it perfectly. The reward for exploration should actually be more story, more cutscenes, more good acting, more good writing. And I think if they can manage to do that, I think it is one of those things that's been proven to be in the unfeasible category because it's expensive to have acting and then to try and either have mocap, which is really expensive, or to go back and do the animations by hand because, as we saw with Andromeda, when you leave it up to procedural facial animations, doesn't do it well. So yeah, that would be my thing as well. Just a big open world that had multiple cities, like full cities, not just towns, but like full cities that felt alive and had, NPC cycles, not just the vendors don't just stay there at their stalls all day long. They go to the tavern, they go to sleep, they have their own houses, all of this different stuff that Elder Scrolls kind of does. But if you play Elder Scrolls long enough, you realize that it's very surface level, like it's very generic as far as the quote unquote AI. And there are, of course, mods to help that. But that I think that would be on top of my list, is a Dragon Age world that is massive, that has multiple cities, multiple regions, an economy that matters, where you could actually trade different goods for different prices in different regions, NPCs that have like lives, and then on top of that, very well structured immersiveness and naturalism. Exactly what you said. If you explore, you get more story, and you get good story.
Now, while I would enjoy that game, I'm going to be on the other side saying I'm so tired of open world games that that is right. Not what I want. I would much rather have, like, here's the thing, I don't even know what game to even compare this to. But like I would rather just have like smaller maps that are just like really solidly well built. And, like, maybe, like, little nooks and crannies that open up every once in a while. Like, maybe, like, I would be totally okay with the Dragon Age that's just set in, like, a fairly large town. And, like, buildings open up as you continue on with, like, doing explorations. And, like, the building is just, like, a couple levels here and there. I would totally be okay with no open worlds and stuff like that. And just, like, have, like, one small... Well, maybe I'm, I guess, projecting, like, a more smaller open world, maybe. But, like, just... I'm so tired of, like... jumping into a game and just feeling completely overwhelmed because there's so much to do. I would rather just have like a couple things here and there, and then like as you go on, the game just kind of grows and grows and grows, rather than you're just thrown into this world and you're going So like that's one of the reasons I haven't really replayed Divinity Original Sin, because when you jump into the game, it's like there's so much.
It's a ton.
There's so much.
Yeah.
I would love to replay it, but it's like 200 hours just to do like one playthrough, and that's not even 100%. Like I just feel overwhelmed. So
yeah, you got to try Pillars. You got to try Pillars of Eternity. I think you would really enjoy it. But yeah, you know what? I'll cop to this. I'll totally admit to it. I don't know what I fucking want. I'm such a walking contradiction on this topic in particular, because, and you've exposed me, Caitie, because exactly what you described about smaller maps that are more well crafted and just have, little branches for exploration. I've said that on the show that's what I want. I've actually talked about wanting that for Bioware games. And I'll try and parse through my contradiction, right, of why I've sort of flip-flopped, or why I continue to vacillate back and forth between these two stances. The short version of it is I'm playing Skyrim right now. And Skyrim is a really good open world, right? So when I'm playing a really good open world, I want more open world. I want more good open world. But when I am playing, quite frankly, Andromeda, even though I like it, and Inquisition, even though I like it, I say I actually love those games, they're not good open worlds. And so I start to go, I don't mind Kirkwall so much. You get rid of the repeat copy and paste dungeons, and I kind of rather have that. I don't mind, Knights of the Old Republic and Mass Effect 2 and 3 that much. Like, I start to think that that's what I want, but when I'm playing a good open world, I go, God, I wish they could get this right in Dragon Age. But I do agree with you that there is an open world fatigue that I think is happening for everyone. That's why I kind of mentioned, at first it was a feature, and then it was sort of like only Rockstar games, right? Only GTA and Red Dead. It became like a subgenre, and now it's a genre, and now it's sort of like in everything. which I just don't think is necessary. I don't think it works for everything.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a perfect example. This is not a perfect one, but the best thing I can think of is Deus Ex Human Revolution, which is the most recent Deus Ex. It came out in 2015 or 2016.
Mm-hmm.
They followed the same pattern that they've been doing in Deus Ex, what they did in... no, I'm sorry. I think I said Human Revolution. Mankind Divided is the most recent one. Back in Human Revolution and in the prior ones, they had a pretty Bioware-esque, Obsidian-esque style of map design, which is fairly sizable, little nooks and crannies, little branches that you can do, but it's representative of a city or a space station or a town. Or so you're not really exploring the whole thing. You're sort of in this section of it, right? And for some reason, if you're coming off of an open world game, stuff like that feels too small to me. It sort of feels like, oh, I'm in this big city, but I can only explore 7 blocks. Like, that just feels kind of weird. And it sort of feels like you're in a room that's too small. However, what's really good about that is the way that quests nest onto each other, right? You can structure your quest perfectly where you're going to send the player here for a main quest, and there's going to be 2 or 3 side quests that complete on the way perfectly, and it feels super naturalistic, and you never feel overwhelmed. And then you clear an area of all the quests, you know you didn't miss anything, and then you go to the next area for the main quest, and again, there's 4 or 5 ancillary quests that are dotted perfectly along the way, and they may even slightly interweave with the part of the main quest that you know the player is doing at that time.
Mm-hmm.
You can structure your quests perfectly, but the drawback is it does feel kind of small after you come off of a good open world.
I guess I just don't mind it feeling small. Like, I'm okay with small games. I don't need this big, grand, epic, like I feel like, to me, a game that feels big, grand, and epic is like a really tight narrative. And like I feel like with open world games, sometimes it's kind of hard to do. I do think Witcher 3 did it very well, but I also think that like the plot of... I mean, obviously The Witcher 3, because they would build their plot around their game mechanic, but I just mean like the Witcher franchise in general is about like a wandering guy that just takes odd jobs. Like, that's perfect for open
That's
world.
true.
It's absolutely perfect. Dragon Age, like you're with companions, and that kind of complicates things, and it's a little sticky, and like I just don't think it like quite is as tight as the Witcher premise is, or a lot of other open worlds. So I guess I just feel like because you want to travel along with companions, like there's just a lot of stuff there that I feel kind of like ruins an open worldness. Like what if your companions want to go do something? Like, what about camping?
Yeah.
Like, there are people too. Like, just having, like, companions follow you around in an open world, it kind of feels empty and weird. And, like, especially with Inquisition, the problem is I had some dialogue issues, some banter issues. So, even if that was fixed, like, companions having no dialogue around, like, the area where you are, like, it just... I don't know, it feels weird, and like they try to fix that with Trespasser, where like they have little nodes where you can have like talk to your companions in some places, but after a while you're going to run out of those, and then you're just kind of left with silent companions going around this open world again and again. Like, I don't know, it just... Like, there was something magical in The Witcher of like you're alone on the road with your horse, and you're just going out there, and like... I feel like that's kind of the magic of open world games, so it would kind of be ruined having companions,
You're totally right. Like, now that I'm thinking of it, Red Dead Redemption is the same thing, right? That's why that open world works so good. It's because you're a fucking cowboy out there on your horse, and it's you and your horse, and there's this whole bond with your horse. Mm-hmm. And it's exactly the same thing. Skyrim is sort of the same thing, except the one traveling companion formula works really well. I will say that. And the mod community has really filled in that space with certain characters like Inigo, who is just amazing. That is a fucking phenomenal character that was created by a modder. And having that one travel companion kind of works, but it's still not the same as having a party. Yeah. And you're right. There's something about... You make a really good point about the story. You said, I don't remember exactly, like the epicness of that is going on a strong story. Mm-hmm. And that's very true for Bioware games, I think.
Yeah. I will say I've only played mostly vanilla Skyrim, but like when I was traveling with a companion, I always thought it was kind of awkward. Like she was like my personal slave that maybe sometimes said something. And that was
Yes.
about it.
Yeah.
Like, I love you, Janessa, my dark elf, but like it's didn't say shit.
Yeah. I'm very partial as far as the vanilla ones. I'm very partial to Eric from Rorikstead. I like his little mini story about how his dad doesn't want to let him be an adventurer.
Oh, see, I don't even remember that guy.
Yeah, he won't. You have to convince his dad, and you can like give him money to buy armor, or you can give him some armor or something like that. And if he's gonna go be an adventurer, and if you leave and go do some other quest, the next time you come back to Rorikstead, he's got the armor, and like I think his haircut's different, and he's got weapons. He's like, I did it like because of you. Now I'm an adventurer or whatever. And then you get the option to be like, well, come adventure with me or whatever, and then he becomes your follower.
Oh, that's cute. See, I just remember Janessa was like. She did something bad, and I don't remember, but, like, she was the only companion that never died, so because I went through, like, a whole bunch of companions that died, but for some reason, Janessa was just a tank, and so she just went with me everywhere, because she just could stay alive.
Yeah, well, of course, like, it's a meme with how fast Lydia dies. It was, like, one of the first, like, main ones that you get, but, yeah, so, I agree with you about there is something fundamentally about what Bioware has typically tried to do, which is to tell a strong central narrative and to tell character-driven stories that isn't necessarily conducive to these big blocks of time where you're just roaming around.
Mm-hmm. Now, I would say what I would like, kind of taking on your idea of like I guess I almost want to say in a live video game world, I would much rather have, like, instead of, like, random no-name NPCs having, like, schedules, I would want companions to have schedules. Like, oh, it's around this time of the day, Vivian's taking, forever to get dressed, because that's what Vivian does, like, stuff like that. Like, that would be much more interesting to me, and, like, kind of filling out the lives of the companions, rather than, like, they just kind of sit at their one post at the bar, or the rotunda, or whatever.
We talked about this somewhat in an older episode. I don't know which one it was, but we talked about the idea of, for instance, being able to send companions off on side quests, kind of like a combination of actual side quests that you can do yourself and the war table sort of a thing, like, or not even just you commanding them to go, but sort of as you said with schedules. Like sometimes they just say, look, I have something personal I have to go deal with. And you might say, oh, well, I can help you. And they go, no, I have to do this alone. And they just leave for 2 quests, and then after you do 2 other quests, they come back or something like that. I'm just throwing that out there. I think at some point, if you break the party dynamic too much, at that point, we're talking about something that's not really Dragon Age. It's sort of a different game at that point, but at the same time, maybe potentially it's a way into getting someone to take all of the roster at different times. Because I know a lot of times, on my first playthrough, I try and take everyone to kind of get a feel for them. But on second and third playthroughs, I start going, oh, these are my favorites, and I'm taking them out all the time. And these other people I don't take out ever. So maybe that's a way to sort of say, hey, so and so have their own business going on. You're going to have to mix up your rotation a bit.
Now that would be kind of weaving this into like trying to, for like what we know of what Joplin was. That would be kind of interesting in like the heist based thing. So I imagine there's a lot of like trying to not let the authorities know that you're stealing for heists or whatever it is. So like saying like, okay, we're going to lead this group of companions is going to go over here and try to deal with the guards while me and my main companions are going to go over here and like actually do the actual heist. So like kind of like sending people on like almost dummy quests or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, and then also maybe trying to like, oh, okay, I need to have some sort of alibi, so I'm gonna have my friend dress up as me and go over here.
Oh, what would be really great is if you took the mechanic sort of like from, and I've always thought that this should have been the case, if you look at the suicide mission in Mass Effect 2 and how fucking fun it is to like actually think about your team and go who's best for what job, etc. I thought they should have kept doing that forever. Like they should just do it all the time, every time in Mass Effect and in Dragon Age. Can you imagine planning a heist and maybe not having a death as a repercussion, but it's like, okay, somebody's got to be the safe cracker, and you pick the wrong person to crack the safe, and they do it, but they take too long. So everybody kind of gets spotted. I don't know. You should have masks or something, but somehow because they took too long, maybe a bunch of the other people are recognized, and so now on the next heist mission, you can't take those 3 people out because it's sort of like the authorities are looking for them. They'll get spotted too easily.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I'm liking that.
Like, that would be so much fun if you pull off, and then there should be an achievement for, like, say, if there's 10 major, like, main story heists or whatever, if you do all of them perfectly, you get some crazy achievement or whatever.
Oh, I would love. Okay, this is really random, but there is a kind of like a heist quest line in Dragon and Origins where you become the Dark Wolf. I would absolutely love it if, like, we take on the personification of the Dark Wolf. From Dragon Age Origins, and like we pretend to be the Dark Wolf, and then the warden comes back and it's like, fucking again. Seriously.
Oh man, I'd see that sounds so much like the Gray Fox thing from Oblivion, from Elder Scrolls 4.
See, I didn't play Oblivion.
Yeah, they have basically this very similar thing with like this legendary thief that you sort of assume the identity of.
Well, they do have a legendary thief in Dragon Age. Fuck, what's this called? Is it Black Fox? Is that what I'm thinking of? Is that like legitimately his name? Hold on.
I can't remember. It's probably something like that.
Yeah, Black Fox. Wait, okay, yeah, actually, he would be like perfect. Okay, so the story of the Black Fox is that he was like some noble dude. Was this in the Blessed Age? Yeah, the Blessed Age, kind of like mid to late Blessed Age. Some like noble dude that was like, man, I hate being a noble, and so started like. It essentially being Robin Hood, stealing from the rich as a gift to the poor type of thing. And he has some ragtag group of whatever. And eventually they decide to go after some treasure in the heart of Arlathan, and they never return. And that's the story of the Black Fox. I would love it if, like, we're doing this whole thing with Solus and Arlathan. Like, why not have, like, the Black Fox be an element of that? Because apparently he is in Arlathan. That would kind of tie into the heist. Like, well, we're going to... Oh yeah, maybe we're not even anything to do with the Inquisition. We're just a bunch of thieves, and we just like stumble into the heart of Arlathan trying to go after the Black Fox.
Oh, that would be interesting. Yeah.
Because they've been building up the Black Fox. Like, there's been hints of at least one or two of the novels, like all of the games. That would be great. Like if we tried to be the successor of the Black Fox. Okay, that's my origin.
You want the Black Fox for.
Yeah, well, not that we are the Black Fox, but just like we want to be the Black Fox. Like,
yeah,
that would be fucking rad. Okay, that's my origin or whatever. Oh, which speaking of which, I would be okay with not returning origins. Like, they're fun, but I don't know. I'm just not that attached to them, I guess.
I don't think they need them. Yeah, I agree. I don't think they need them. And I think if you have a really strong set, like I thought the sort of group of spies heist thing is such a strong setup that if you want to just root people in that as the background for your characters, I think that's fine. As long as you have a really good setup and that's interesting and unique, I think people will go for it.
Now, I will say it would be nice to have, like, while we don't have an origin, like, prologue or whatever, it would be nice to have more differences between the races. Like, let's say you're playing a Qunari. It'd be kind of hard to be stealth Qunari in the Deventer Imperium. That would make, like, things more difficult in the game. Versus if you're an elf, suddenly you can go into pretty much any servant area. No one's going to give you a second look. Versus, if dwarves aren't really slaves in Deventer. I mean, they probably could be, but like for the most part, they're not. So it's going to be kind of weird if you're in the servant area. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and like versus if you're a human, you can pretend to be a noble and do all these things. So I feel like going on this heist thing, like depending on your job, gives you more or less options in your heists.
Should they return with? So let's talk about this also. Should they return with the Qunari option? Let's be because I kind of lean on the side that I think they should just cut it.
Now, I think that it'd be much easier from a narrative standpoint because like if they have a Qunari in Deventer, it's going to look kind of weird. It really is. Because Deventer really hates Qunari's, but at the same point, like I really liked playing a Qunari, and I would really like to play one again. So if we're gonna go with our implausible choices here, I'm gonna say fuck yeah, Qunari. Get that Qunari in there.
I will say that, right? If we're gonna say, because of what I was gonna say is they either need to do Qunari way better or not do it at all. But you're right. From the standpoint of we can have anything we want, I want much better Qunari as far as the armor, the animations, the goddamn camera angles, for Christ's sake. All of that stuff needs to be way better, and I want dialogue options dependent on race. I want to be able to be a Qunari who practices the Qun, which is like you want to talk about impossible with how different the voice acting would have to be. That's truly impossible because you would have to basically record every line differently. I would love to have that level of depth, but in the more plausible thing, I think they're going to get rid of Qunari, personally. I don't think that they're going to keep it because I think they didn't do it well, and it takes a lot of resources.
I don't know. I feel like... for one on the Qun thing, I don't want to play the Qun. They're the bad guys. I don't want to play the bad guys.
I like playing the bad guys sometimes.
But I don't know. I think the Qun's like boring bad guys. Like, hello, I am of the Qun. I do Qun thing.
And I gotta be clear, I really don't think I fucking hate the Qun. I think it's stupid, but that's kind of why I want to play as that, because it would be such a challenge for me. Because I've mentioned before that Sten to me was just infuriating. I know some people thought it was kind of cool how nonchalant he was. I thought it was dumb, and I hated the Aeroshock at first, but I love to hate them in a way. I kind of love to hate the Qun, and that's why it would be interesting for me to try and force myself into that perspective.
Now, I would say because the game or the game prompt we got from the article talked about non-traditional game overs. It would be interesting if you start the game off as, okay, you're a Talvashah spy, act normal. So you act normal throughout the thing, and then at the very end of the game, or maybe sometime close, you're like, all right. You've been working towards this goal because that's what we said you do, and you've been feeding us intel, and now here's a time. Okay, now kind of like an Iron Bull moment in Trespasser, where now you are Iron Bull and you have to choose. Am I so attached to maybe my romance option and my companions that no, I don't want to be the Qun anymore. Of yeah, no, fuck you guys, the Qun, here I come. Yeah. So that would be kind of fun, and then it'd be game over because you just ruined everything, and then I don't know, which I don't know why the Qun would, because I'm assuming our main goal would be against Solus. I don't know why the Qun would be against Solus, so maybe that doesn't quite work, but something along the lines of that. The
Qun is against anything that's not the Qun, to be quite honest.
I mean, yeah, you're right.
One other thing that I would love to see in there, it's sort of in the realm of heist, but not really, is sort of political espionage. Because I feel like that would play really big into Tevinter, well, as much as it does in Orlais and Ferelden and everywhere else, but especially in Tevinter with the different houses and the different lords and all this different stuff. If you could choose sort of between 3 or 4 of them that you want to serve or really work with, right? They pay you and your group of spies because you're perfect at infiltrating. And it's set up the same way. You can have varying degrees of success as far as how cleanly you do it, but if you're doing it well, and for one family in particular, it starts to shape the storyline of that family becomes more powerful. And I was almost thinking of something where they don't have a modern day press or a media, but they could have the town crier or whatever is saying different things depending on who you helped and who you hurt, and the gossip and finding rumors and details. I would really enjoy that element of it.
Origins kind of does that during the Dwarven quest line. The town crier.
That's true.
Different things.
That's right.
So they've done it. They've kind of done it before. That would be interesting. Oh boy. Well, okay. So how are we gonna? So we've I guess been talking about a lot of what we want kind of Tevinter and sort of the gameplay to look at. I guess the overarching story. How are we gonna weave Solus into this bitch? What are we doing?
That's a problem, right? At one point I heard, I can't remember for the life of me who said it. It was a YouTuber that I used to listen to, but they were basically talking about how what they thought Inquisition was initially was really centered around the Mage Templar war, and how they thought that was a very interesting sort of moral conundrum of mage freedom versus safety for everyone, and it's got politics and religion and everything else. And once it became about Corypheus, he kind of didn't like that because he thought that the more grounded, naturalistic, political, moral aspect of it was enough to be the center of the narrative. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I think it's the same sort of problem when you introduce, like you said, we're talking about all this different stuff with Tevinter, and then it's you have a demigod, an actual god, and someone mantling the equivalent of an elven god who wants to radically change and potentially destroy the world. How the hell do you plop that on top of like there's this presumably there's this very intricate and sort of labyrinthine maze of politics in Tevinter that could be full of intrigue, but there's something way more important than all of it. So,
well, I will say that I think it's actually might be easier than you're giving it credit for. So Solus needs people. He needs bodies. He's obviously recruiting like random. See, when the Trespasser first came out, I thought he was only going to be using ancient Arlathan elves because I thought there was enough to recruit an army. We have now learned from the comics that no, he's just recruiting any elf that can do anything. So suddenly, there is a very large population of disgruntled elves in Tevinter. Solus has a history.
Fucking brilliant.
Solus has a history of recruiting slaves and freeing them. It's perfect.
Oh, you're right. He's gonna be he's gonna be Daenerys. He's gonna be goddamn Khaleesi, breaker of chains, mother of dragons.
I don't know anything about Game of Thrones, but yeah, sure, fuck it.
Yeah, he's gonna stage like a slave uprising, like a revolt.
Yeah, and so we're gonna be in that awkward thing of like, well, fuck, we don't want Solus to have an army,
but we do want to free slaves.
But I also don't like slavery.
Holy shit, you're right. That's fucking brilliant. That's fucking brilliant. Yeah.
So, which if they don't do that, I'm gonna be so disappointed because that's such a perfect setup.
It's 100%.
Like, do I free the slaves because it's morally right, and then give my opponent a giant army, or at least like even if I recruit some of my own, he's still gonna have a larger army. Or we keep Tevinter how it is, and Tevinter will now like be on our side and be powerful enough to help fight Solus. Like, so what? Yeah. God, I think that would be a really good basis.
Can you imagine some of the special dialogue for an elf character? Like,
oh yeah,
like the dialogue between like an elven slave in Tevinter. If you choose the option of not wanting to let them be free because you're afraid of Solus taking them, like the dialogue from those people going, wait. Like, I'm an elf, you're an elf, and you're free, and so only you get to be free? Like, fuck you. Like, that would be such a great moment.
Yeah, and then even just, like, which if this was an option, I would hope you could, like, as the player character, be able to say, like, oh my god, like, I want this for my people so bad. I want it so bad, but I just can't do it this way, and this is the only way that I'll be able to do it. And it's, like, this emotional turmoil of, like, this is terrible.
You would have to have an elven party member who turns against you if you don't do it, and they actually defect and go over to Solus's side. You would have
now,
to.
Why should that be Fenris? Because that would be perfect.
Ooh,
yeah, boy.
God, Fenris is a Solus kind of dude, isn't he?
Yeah.
I kind of feel like those two dudes would have a lot in common. Can you imagine those two guys just standing there brooding together, just back to back, being all broody and shit?
Mm-hmm. And oh god, yeah. So I would really love like something that I've been kind of thinking of, like some sort of like major quest in the game is there's like, you know, the Tevinter Magisterium versus the slaves, and like if the slaves leave the Tevinter Imperium, that crumbles a lot of their economy and all sorts of stuff. So I would really like those two factions to be to be like head by like Fenris, who we know is really working against Tevinter slavery out in the field, and then also Dorian and Mayveris. And so suddenly you have to choose between Dorian and Fenris, which suddenly like a whole bunch of people went, no! Like what if you choose the slaves and so they kill a whole bunch of magisters and bye Dorian, sorry.
That is so crazy. You're talking some serious truth here. I'm starting to think of a bunch of different stuff as far as like past party members who are elven. So Fenris, number one, I feel like it would be really badass if Solus sort of made Fenris like his champion kind of a thing. Like he just kind of sends him as like his top guy to just fucking two-hand sword bitch slap some folks. And maybe he like gives him some sort of power somehow. Like he makes him more powerful with some crazy elven shit. Mm-hmm. But more than just that, I'm trying to think about other elven characters. So, like, think about this. Sarah, not a Solus kind of gal at all, but she wants slaves to be free. Let's be honest about this. Sarah, I think she would struggle with it a lot, and she would sort of hate siding with Solus, but she is not going to side with rich Tevinter nobles who own elven slaves. Even though she doesn't necessarily care about elven or not elven, she wants all the slaves to be free. Mm-hmm. Maybe she reluctantly goes with Solus. If you look at a situation with like a character like Meryl, like she doesn't.
Oh, Meryl will be totally fucking in it. She's like, yeah.
She's just like she loves elven shit, and she doesn't really have a good moral compass sometimes.
And she has that weird Illuvian thing. Now, I will say, going back on Fenris, though, like, what's the one thing that Fenris hates just as much as slavery? It's magic. So I feel like to get Fenris involved, you're going to have to do, like, kind of a wool over his eyes, where he thinks he's just fighting for the slaves, and he's, like, being manipulated by Solus. Like, he doesn't know.
You're right.
He's also giving Solus his army. Like, I feel like there's going to have to be some sort of manipulation to get Fenris on Solus's side. Unless, like, Fenris is just got... Because at least how I remember Dragon Age 2, Fenris is much more angry about magic than he was about slavery. He's very angry about slavery, but the magic part, he really had a bug up his butt about.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That would be an even more interesting angle if Solus was just kind of playing him.
Now, Zevran is weird, because I feel like Zevran is Zevran. Like, he's pretty chill about everything. So I feel like... Despite him being an elven companion, like, I think he would be more on the side of just keeping Thetis sane rather than for the elves. Like, he definitely wants to help the elves, but I think, like, he could see the sacrifice necessary.
I was thinking the same thing. It's like, I don't think he'd be, he's not going to be down with slavery, but he's also he's not going to side with the megalomaniac. Like, he's not going to go on Solus's side.
Yeah. Meryl, I think, is the only one I can definitely say if she knew everything, she'd be like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it.
I completely agree.
Yeah, which, I mean, we would love these characters to come back, but then, like, if they're romanced by a hawk, how is that going to work? Would it be like, if they're romanced by a hawk, they definitely wouldn't be swayed, because they're like, oh, well, I want to help my people, but I love a human, and what happens to the human? Like,
that's true. That's really true.
So that would be something, I don't know how you would handle that. Which, I guess, speaking of past companions, I still really want, even if it's like just a portion of a fade and it's a dream, we're finally going to have 4 PCs as of Dragon Age 4. I want a party of all your former PCs together. That's just too cool not to happen. You know what I mean?
It would be the greatest thing ever.
I want a party,
yeah,
of the Inquisitor, the Hawk, the Warden, and the heist Black Fox man, whatever it's going to be. That's what I want. That's my goal.
I couldn't agree more. I think that's probably in the unfeasible category, but I fucking want it so bad.
Yeah, I would still, like, I think that'd be a really good side quest where, like, you get stuck, like, because it's Tevinter, there's some crazy magic going on, and, like, let's say it's kind of like a magical VR game, and there's just like, oh, you get to choose between, like, these famous Theodosian characters. Oh, no, it just so happens the very famous ones coming out of the Dragon Age is the Inquisitor, Hawk, and the Warden. And maybe you can even do, like, some crazy ones, like, oh, do you want to do a magical VR projection of Andraste or Draken? Fuck it, whatever, let's do it. And you, like, maybe go through some, I don't know, like, maze or something, some fun quests. Like, I'm thinking really just more of, like, a side thing, because I understand, like, that'd be kind of hard to do from a story perspective. Even though, I feel like, I don't know, all 3 of our past PCs would totally be into Tevinter and doing whatever. Specifically the Inquisitor, which I guess more on, let's talk about past PC involvement in general. The Inquisitor has to have a major role, right? Like, I cannot imagine confronting Solus and not having the Inquisitor there, whether you're romanced or not. Like, there's just so much history there that I feel like it needs to be addressed. That just not having the Inquisitor in the game at all would be tragic.
What if Solus kills the Inquisitor early on?
Oh my! One from a romance, my heart would, like, break.
Yeah.
Because I guess, like, I love my Inquisitor so much. He's my favorite PC out of all of them, which I know is weird for some people, but, like, I would be so heartbroken. I guess I would then definitely be like, all right, fuck this guy. He killed my baby. All right, we're in it to win it. Bye, Solus.
Yeah.
But that would be interesting, though, like, if your friendship with Solus, like, maybe he didn't kill you, but maybe he didn't save you either. Like, maybe the Inquisitor's put in a position where it's like, oh no, only Solus can save them for whatever reason. And, like, if you're friended or a romance, he's like, they were pretty chill, and he saves them, versus not friended. He's like, oh, that sucks, dude. Bye. And maybe this is also something where, like, maybe your PC, like, put them in this position. Like, maybe this can go back to the sending NPCs on quests for you. If you send the Inquisitor to something major, maybe that's kind of a consequence if he didn't do something right. The Inquisitor can die, and Solus could save them if they like Solus, or if Solus likes them, but maybe not so much. So, which I guess on top of that, I would like to see past choices matter more. Like, I feel like in Inquisition, like, there's only like maybe 2 or 3 choices that actually matter to Inquisition, and kind of same thing with 2 to Origins and so on and so forth. But
well, I mean, we're almost certainly gonna. I mean, we are pretty much going to be into Winter, but it is interesting, at least from afar, to be like, who's still going to be ruling Orlais at that point.
Mm-hmm. It would be interesting to see if you put Briala as a puppet, or not Briala, as a Gaspard as a puppet for Briala, because that would suddenly, there's a very large elven population kind of controlling Orlais. Would suddenly Orlais be undermined because a lot of those people controlling Orlais actually worked for Solus, so now Solus has Orlais.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first thing that should come to mind. I think that would be perfect.
Because at least in the book Masked Empire, there is like Solus almost controlled Briala, but Felisan was like, no, I don't want to do this. I think they can do it on their own, and so he was killed because of that. But what if another agent of his went in there and was totally okay controlling Briala? Because I was actually reading Briala's codex entry for a video the other day, and the codex entry for Briala was kind of interesting because it questioned who Briala was working for. And at least with the book set up, Briala's working for herself. So maybe that's just kind of that, but like, is there someone that Briala is actually working for? And could it be Solus's goal? Or is she just really working for herself, and whoever wrote the codex entry didn't know what they were talking about?
Yeah. I mean, it would be super fun for them to explore that. Even just as a possibility where you're not sure at first.
Yeah. So
is it just impossible to do anything with the Warden as far as like the voice? Is that really what limits them? I mean, also, it's impossible for a number of reasons. The Warden could be dead, number one.
Yeah.
I mean, will we just never do it? Or is it possible that they'll include like a glimpse of the Warden where they just don't talk for some reason?
Okay, 2 points. First, the Warden might be dead, but everyone has a Warden commander. It's a thing.
Yes.
All it needs to change, like even the Warden you had in Origins is still the Warden commander. The only thing that would change is that you probably want to give them more Norwegian accent. That's literally it. You know, right. Like, and there might be some dialogue changes, like, oh, it's a hero for Eldon, you know, oh, it's just the Warden of Commander. Like, it's like the difference between saying he or she in a line. Like, maybe, I don't know. I feel like it's really not that difficult to just have the Warden Commander or the hero for Eldon. So I guess on that point, stop the Warden Commander erasure. They exist too.
That's true.
Now on the voice thing, I feel like kind of with writing Hawk in Inquisition, because Hawk was very anti-blood magic in Inquisition, whereas he could be a blood mage himself in the game. I feel like there's always going to be things that they do to the Warden or Hawk that are going to anger people, like, oh, this breaks my headcanon. But I feel like it's almost a little bit worth it, because you can always just say, like, oh, well, that's, I don't know, I would rather have a slightly broken character than nothing at all. Maybe that's just me. Like, I don't mind having a voice put on my Warden and be like, well, that's not really what I imagined, but, like, at least they're there, and I can just pretend in my head that this is something different, you know?
Yeah, also, I agree with that, first of all, totally. Also, when it comes to the voice, one of the aspects, I didn't think about the Orlesian accent for the Warden Commander, you're right about that, but also, like, no matter what, you could probably make the voice a little bit older, because it's been at least 10 years since you would have been them. Presumably they're already an adult. And I just kind of think, like, well, my own sort of headcanon rationalization for that is that's not quite what I had in mind, but also, you know, let's say it's been 15 years or however long since I was in control of that character. Maybe this is just how they sound now after whatever shit they've been through in the meantime.
Now, I will say, like, let's be honest, the Warden Commander was about 18, 19 during Dragon Age Origins. And
that young?
Yeah, for most Origins, it's like 18, 20. I think the oldest is roughly 22, and that's the Dwarven Noble because of the ages of the brothers. But they're all like super fucking young. And Jordan, I hate to say it, we're about the age of 10 years of the Warden Commander in presumably Dragon Age 4. My voice hasn't changed that much. You know what I mean?
Interesting. Granted, I guess you're right.
You could say like, oh, it's the blight does something through their vocal cords, but like I think I sound pretty much the same as I did when I was 18.
Might. You're probably right. Yeah, that's so crazy. I don't know why, but yeah, when you really think about it, like the human noble and stuff like that, I was trying to place them as being a tad older, but it's like, no, they would be about that age.
Mm-hmm. And like the circle mage, like you take the harrowing when you are 18, it's like a coming of age thing.
Yeah,
and it's all pretty young, and like Alistair, I think is supposed to be 20 or something like that. Like they're all babies.
God, that's crazy.
Origin is full of babies.
How nuts. Well, I mean, then, yeah, in that case, just do whatever, right? Give them a voice, and it's not going to be perfect. As soon as they talk, someone's going to be disappointed, but I'm kind of with you. I'd rather just see it happen.
Yeah.
I kind of just want to see the Warden and Hawk and the Inquisitor, just that one fucking money shot of them all standing there with the new PC as well. And, that would just be cool.
That would be the best screenshot of any video game I would ever take, Like, yes. Everyone in a picture. It's the family photo. I want that family photo. That's what I want.
Yeah, that would just be... I mean, this is super corny to think of it this way, but it would just be great if it's one of those instances where it's like, you and let's say the player character, the Inquisitor, are going to face Solus for some reason, and like the Solus is about to like kill the Inquisitor or something, but Hawk comes in at the last moment to save him, and then they fight some more, and then he's about to kill Hawk too, and then at the very last moment the Warden comes in. Like, holy shit. And then they all kind of team up, like the four of them. That'd be fucking amazing.
That would be good. Okay, one thing though. I love it, even though it's corny. Let's have it. And I want like a really like epic like moment where it's like very obvious, like, okay, this is where you take the screenshot, like everyone's posing. Oh, cool. Anyway.
Yes.
But okay, so no matter what, everyone at least has a Warden Commander, even if the Warden's dead. Now, Hawk can die in Dragon Age Inquisition, so who's going to be the stand-in for Hawk, if anybody?
Anders.
But Anders can die.
The ghost of Anders.
Anders' possessed corpse of justice, which could be a thing. I'd be okay with that. I don't even know, because you can't say one of the like. My first instinct was like, oh, Carver or Bethany, perfect, but they can also die. So who then? Maybe because they're alive no matter what. Charade.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's not perfect, but it's at least one of the Hawk family members. And also a Jenny, and so, like, maybe that's the red Jenny.
Well, I mean, here's the other possibility, which is just, like, Hawk's not dead no matter what.
Oh.
That to me could be... If that's how you reveal Hawk, right? Which is just, like... Well, it would have... You couldn't necessarily, because maybe Hawk made it out, but if Hawk didn't make it out of the Fade, but somehow survived, that's the real... That would be amazing.
Or maybe it's, like, a... Maybe it's kind of ambiguous if it's Hawk or not, and it's kind of like the spirit of the divine in Here Lies the Abyss, or at least at the beginning, and then it's revealed where it's actually a spirit. But, like, is it Hawk? Is it something else? You're not quite sure, which, like, sounds kind of like what they did to Liliana, where it's like, oh, we just kind of wanted them back, so here's a plot, I guess. But at the same time, like, I kind of like, oh... But okay, now maybe it would be a lot cooler if they did it well, because like, what if this gives your Hawk's romance a chance to say goodbye and then they fade away?
Ooh, that'd be heartbreaking.
Oh, I love it now. Okay, now I like the idea. Oh, like that would be like a really good like I not that the goodbye to Hawk was extremely bad in Inquisition, but I feel like the best goodbye to Hawk was actually the Codex entry from Trespasser of the Heart in Hightown, whatever. But like maybe a one where it's like the romance interest would be kind of fun. I don't know. But I guess it's really hokey and cheesy, but I guess it would make my heart happy. I guess I'm also I feel like I'm building this Dragon Age 4 game to like kind of like wrap up a little bit the series. Not that I would want Dragon Age to end, but I kind of hate this thing that Inquisition has done, where it's like I'm so invested in what happens to the story next, and it's been a very long time since the release of Inquisition. While I would definitely like some sort of cliffhanger or whatever between Dragon Age 4 and Dragon Age 5, I don't want it to be something I'm so invested in that like the fan community right now is absolutely going bonkers that if BioWare falls apart, like their lives are too, because they're not going to know what happens to Solvellen. You know, I would want whatever cliffhanger there be, it's definitely like interesting in a cliffhanger, but like not so much that people are so invested in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just
no, I
because
agree
I'm
with you
kinda
entirely.
Tired of the fans.
It basically it has to have some sort of closure. I think that's always been the idea behind it, is that this is the one, like this is sort of the end to the actual trilogy in a way, because Dragon Age 2 was kind of shoehorned in there, even though we all love Dragon Age 2, that this is actually the end of the trilogy.
The problem is then like we kind of created this fairly, I would say, small story of like Solus and the Tevinter Imperium and fixing that. Like we are still leaving out a whole bunch of other mysteries of like the blights. What happens with the blights? How are the blights going to be involved? Because like the blights is like a huge thing. Something to do with like the blights and Red Lyrium and trying to tie all that up neatly in a bow, and then you have to involve Titans somehow, because otherwise the Descent DLC is a whole bunch of bullshit. So I don't know.
You know, I would like to leave I mean, I don't know. You tell me if there's something sort of glaringly wrong about this. I know it's a mystery, but I'd kind of like to leave the blights not resolved, so that, you know, let's say it's not anytime soon, but whenever Dragon Age 5 comes around, you know, I'd like to see what a blight would look like in a modern game, right? Like seeing town by town, how it affects, how it spreads, having like more battles, and it's like, you know, like what video games are going to be like 10 years from now or whenever a Dragon Age 5 comes out. That'd be really cool to see another blight, and maybe go back to the Origins viewpoint of, you know, you're a young warden recruit, blah, 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 just kind of do that in a new way.
You know, I don't hate that, but I don't know. Because it would be really cool, because like Dragon Age Origins, the 5th blight is so weird compared to the other blights, because it only lasts a year. Like the first blight lasted almost like 200, 100 years, something like that.
Right.
It's an absolutely crazy amount. Like the shortest blight before the 5th blight was still like over a decade. So what gives, you know? Like it would be nice to see a fucking blight. Like it's going to last 10 years, kind of like how Dragon Age 2 does it, where you
exactly.
like you just go all wild. It takes a couple years, and like it's a big strain, and like maybe even do some of the things they wanted to do for Origins but just didn't work out, where like your companions can catch the blight if they're not careful enough, and do something like that. So that would
we
be
even
really
talked
cool.
about at one point the idea of like a protagonist death and then having someone else take over. I think we talked about that in one of the episodes. Like, what if it was like a natural death? What if it was a 50-year blight or whatever it is? Your character,
so just old.
Your character dies, but you have kids, and like then you kind of like jump forward a little bit, and one of your kids takes over.
Oh shit! Now I'm thinking of like a is it Rogue Legacy, where like if your warden actually dies in game, it's not game over. It's just like another warden recruit, and like you see how many warden recruits you go for before the blight ends.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be. I think that would be really interesting.
Now, something that a lot of people have been wanting is twin blights. I don't really know why this has come up with in the fandom recently, but like have two archdemons rise up, and then you have it on two fronts. So it's like the epic blights, you know. I don't know how I would feel about that. Like, I guess
sounds a little bit. It sounds a little bit like Sharknado or Snakes on a Plane. It's just like it's like Blightnado or something. I don't know. It just sounds a little bit like, you know, what would be really badass is two blights.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, I'm not sold on it either, but that's now that you mentioned that, I can't get it out of my head. Oh god, it's a two-headed dragon. Da da da.
It's just blights on top of blights on top. It's like Aliens versus Predator, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, we've been doing this for about an hour. Is there anything else you would like, crazy idea that you would want to hear?
Yeah, no, nothing. Nothing really comes to mind at at the moment, I guess. Yeah, I'm sort of like trying to cycle through a few crazy ones overall, but I think we've hit ground that's actually not too crazy. Like it's all very plausible within the Dragon Age universe.
Yes, this is why I kind of want something like really crazy that like maybe makes sense in the universe, but would be so obnoxious to do in game development.
I mean, look, just from this is purely gameplay. This has nothing to do with story, and I know this is impossible, but I have this fantasy of a game that blends genres almost seamlessly, and I think I mentioned this as well on an earlier episode of just like I would love to play an action RPG / you can play it as an isometric / you can actually play it as a strategy, as a tactics game, like turn-based tactics / you would have missions that are an RTS. That's impossible. I mean, there's no way to do that from a technical standpoint. But when I think of like, say, a blight or like a war going on, it's like, well, I would want to have the view of commanding an entire battle, which is an RTS. I would want to have the view of commanding like a small squad in a skirmish, which is a tactics, or like a very small party, isometric, or a few people like action RPG. There's no way to do that I know of in any game engine, but I mean, you wanted crazy.
I'm trying to think. I guess. Okay, so what if? This is less Dragon Age 4, more just like where the series is going to go. But okay, so Dragon Age 4 is now that thing that we laid out for the last hour, and the rest of the story now continues on with like a game series, kind of like Divinity and like the way it plays. Maybe Pillars. Again, I haven't played Pillars because I'm a terrible person. Where it's like maybe mostly not really, things aren't really recorded. Maybe there's a couple lines recorded here and there, but not everything. And you get to like really customize your character, maybe even your party, and like you just follow along with the blights and like the story of the rest of like I guess the mysteries we have. And it's just, it'd be probably smaller, easier to make. You could explore a whole bunch of things. It'd be a lot cheaper because you have voice acting everything. And I absolutely love that. I love the world of Dragon Age, obviously. And I really like this playstyle of Divinity if it was, a little bit easier to like not be overwhelmed. But I guess that would be like my dream Dragon Age game, honestly. It's like, I guess Divinity set in the world of Dragon Age because I really like that turn-based tactical RPG type of thing. Kind of sort of what you're talking about, except less stuff, I guess, thrown in there. But I would totally be okay with like the like weird like Dragon Age games that like are all so different from each other, and then like that's the main core, and then like a spin-off series that's this tactical and thing, and that's you tell smaller stories, but it's tighter.
I agree. Like I almost think it's, even though it's kind of far-fetched, on the other hand, I almost think it's ridiculous that BioWare hasn't done it. Because I feel like you could do it in a cost-effective way, and I feel like you could draw back some of those people that maybe are yearning to do this. So you get, a Laidlaw and a Gator and maybe even like a Drew Carpathian, and you give them a small team and like a really cost-effective like Unity, not Unity, well, you probably would use Unity, but like an Infinity engine type game engine, and just say, look, make Dragon Age kind of in a modern way like you used to make Baldur's Gate.
Yeah.
And have at it. And I feel like that would be a smash success in the realm of Pillars of Eternity and Divinity.
Yeah, because the gameplay would be so tight, and everyone that really loves the Dragon Age story, like, that would be the perfect way to tell the story of Dragon Age. Like, it'd be really easy to carry on choices because suddenly you don't need everything voice acted or animated. It's just written, and that's like what they do best. And like there's some really solid codex entries in the world, unlike the world of Dragon Age, that are like really fun to read, but just no one really reads codex entries. So like having it kind of presented in that sort of way would be a really good way to do some absolutely crazy stories that they probably couldn't get away with in the main series. So I feel like that's my I guess real crazy idea for Dragon Age, and I know not everyone's gonna like that, but I think it'd be a lot of fun. And like you would still have romances and stuff like that. Like I don't know if Pillars does, but Divinity does.
It does, yeah.
The Divinity stuff, despite being mostly read out by like an old elderly Englishman, so that's a little weird. But like,
yeah.
If you just like read it on your own, like I'd be totally solid with that. There's like really really good romances in Divinity, and it's mostly just text. So
And
I don't know.
Pillars, so Pillars actually in 2, if I'm not mistaken, it is all voice acted now, or mostly all voice acted in 2.
Mm-hmm.
In 1, it was hardly ever voice acted, and I gotta tell you, if you had asked me before, and granted I still never beat Pillars 2, if you had asked me beforehand, I would have definitely said, well, the voice acting one is better. And when I was starting to get into Pillars 1, a lot of it is unvoice acted.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, it's a little bit different, but at a certain point, there's so much reading in Pillars, more so than in Divinity even. You just start to feel like you're reading a book, which I know for some people that sounds terrible and frustrating because they don't want to read books, but I like to read books. And so for me, at a certain point, I just kind of changed my mindset. Like when I was sitting down to play Pillars, I'm like, well, I'm actually sitting down to read this book, quite frankly, with little bits of gameplay mixed in. And then I actually kind of started to love it for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went to Pillars 2, I do think it's partly because the writing overall, quite frankly, is not as strong.
Mm-hmm.
But the voice acting almost kind of takes me out of it in a way. It's weird to say. I never thought I would say that, but it's like it actually kind of takes me out of what that experience is, because I feel like in a lot of ways, Pillars is a very literary experience.
Yeah.
And I think Dragon Age could be brilliant as that.
I agree. I know that's my idea. Oh, here's another crazy one. I just want to throw out there. Make your own hair part of the game.
Wait, what?
Like, they have such terrible hairstyles. Just like make it like an easy to do. Make your own hair for the the character creator.
Make your own hair?
Yeah, like
How
have
are
like
they gonna
a
do
maybe
that?
like baby's first 3D modeling, and you're able to like actually move the pieces around to create a hairstyle you actually want. Just
How about this? How about this? Just generally, you want to put in what's completely impossible, like a total pipe dream. How about just official mod support again?
Oh yeah.
Like, for the love of God, like the CK, the creation kit for Elder Scrolls. I know people may probably think I'm such a shill for Skyrim, but like, holy shit, it's so good. And almost anytime I'm playing Skyrim, and I go, I wish you could do this, and I'll just pause the game, Alt tab out, and just go Skyrim SE, whatever mod. It's there. It exists. At one point, my character is like off in the mountains, and he's doing some weird like exploration thing in the mountains, and I'm like, you know what would be fucking badass is if he was just like smoking a pipe up on a snowy mountain.
Did you get a pipe mod?
And I pause the game, I go, there's no way, right? There's no way. Just put it in, Skyrim SE, pipe mod. There's a fucking pipe mod, and you can smoke pipe. Like, are you everything. It's anything you want. They have it. There's a mod for it. It's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, and like look how long Skyrim has lasted just because of the mod support. If Dragon Age had that, that would be spectacular.
And look how much eagerness there is in the modding community for Dragon Age Inquisition and Mass Effect Andromeda and Mass Effect 3, despite the fact that it's very difficult and it's very limited in what you can do, but people want to mod these games.
Yeah. Mods. Oh god, I just got a image of like if we had as many Skyrim mods as we do for Dragon Age. My god, the things that we could do.
It's like, that's what we want. What are we actually going to get? It's going to be even more locked down than Andromeda. Although I will say they cracked Andromeda faster than they did Inquisition. They cracked that thing in like 2 weeks.
I wonder if part of that is because it used the same engine though, so like they kind of got it by that point.
Right.
I wonder if like with Dragon Age 4, if it's going to be even cracked even faster. The thing gets built on Anthem's code base, so I don't know if anyone's even thought about modding Anthem because it's an online game and they're finicky with that. But which I guess that's my number one fear for when they said built on Anthem's code base is going to be based online, because if I can't use mods, my experience just went down like 200%.
Oh, yes. Yeah, 100%. I completely agree.
So... yeah, definitely. Okay, so I guess to wrap up a very quick summary on the back of our make-believe game box, it's well, I guess it depends on either of us, but I want like a tighter-knit story that's like based around like maybe just one city, and there's like a couple other extra maps of like, we got into the forest once or maybe, but like all the maps are really solidly built. Everything is really centered around a focused narrative. The side quests are kind of Witcher-like. You can build your own hair in the character creator. I don't know. And yeah, that's I guess, which to be honest, kind of sounds like what they were going for with Joplin. Because they did mention a smaller scope story with heists, which granted we added the heist thing because of the Joplin thing, but like it.
Yeah.
I do wonder, like, not that like all of our ideas were always going to be on there because we're just two assholes on the internet, but like, I guess I'm just now getting sad for Joplin again, is what I just want to get at.
I mean, look, is it going to be Anthem with dragons? Probably not. But is it good? Is it going to be close enough that someone could make that comparison? I don't know. It might be close enough that you could make a wild comparison.
I don't know. At this point, if it just has a successful launch, people aren't going to call it Anthem with dragons.
Yeah. But anyway, anything else we want to cover today?
No, I think that's pretty. I know, like, someone wanted us to talk about, like, what the community wants a Dragon Age 4, and so I was perusing on the Dragon Age 4 wishlist mega thread that comes out every month in the Dragon Age subreddit, and I think pretty much what I read out in our very first episode, I think we talked about that, they're all the same. Like, I keep reading, like, okay, everyone wants a tighter knit story or an open world story. They want the warden to come back. They want specializations to be mixed so you could be a warrior and a mage at the same time. They want wardens in general to come back. They want griffins. Let's look.
Let's fly on griffins. I mean, yeah. I said before we started, it essentially boils down to like we want Solus. We want Solus to be cool. We want Solus to get naked. That's essentially that's the top of the list, right? Everybody wants that elf section.
Oh, they want origins to come back. They want the Mabari. They want more dragons. Like this is all the stuff I'm reading on the mega thread right now. They want mounts to come back, but they want cool mounts actually.
A Dorian mount.
Yeah, like it's. This person says they want the Fex as a race, a playable race, which we don't even know what the fuck those are. Like, slow your roll, man.
What was it? Fire sprites? Was that what we talked about one time? Fire sprites, playable race.
Playable race. Yeah, there you go. Oh god, the Kossith, not the Kossith. The scaled ones. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nah, like I don't know. Like it's all the same stuff. We all want the same thing, pretty much. Like they keep saying the same things over and over and over again. So I feel like going over it in depth is just like rehashing what we did the very first episode. Like we haven't changed much as a community because we haven't really seen anything to gush about recently. So, yeah. I don't know. That's all I had to say. I think with that I am officially done though. So, Jordan, where can they find you?
People can find me at the Exalted March on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, etc. Where can the folks find you, Caitie?
They can find me on YouTube as Ghildirthalen, and on Twitter as Ghildirthalen, and on Reddit as Gillanon. And with that, guys, Dura Shira.